Are you a fan of tactical FPS games? Then 6 Days of Fallujah might be the perfect game for you. This military early access game has taken the internet by storm, scoring very high review rates on Steam and becoming a trending hit overnight. But why is this? How is this seemingly overpriced and unpolished game getting so much love and attention? Is it just being overhyped, or is the game actually that good? Let's find out. So 6 Days of Fallujah is a unique title that teleports us to the hearts of one of the most intense battles ever fought. And the game is designed to offer an immersive and realistic depiction of urban warfare, exposing players to the unpredictable and often harrowing realities of combat. And 6 Days of Fallujah captures the tension and constant uncertainty of urban combat. Each corner, each building, every street corner could potentially house life-threatening danger, giving you a genuine sense of what soldiers might actually have experienced. And what truly sets the game apart is the attempt to weave in the true story and real-life experiences into the fabric of the gameplay. It is not just about the shootouts and tactical decisions, but also about witnessing the human aspects of warfare. From heartfelt dialogues to heart-wrenching scenarios, the game is so much more about the soldier's experience as it is about the war they're fighting. So if you're seeing a war game that pushes beyond the usual boundaries, 6 Days in Fallujah might be worth your attention. Now, the main gameplay loop in 6 Days Fallujah revolves around moving from one objective to the other, systematically clearing buildings, streets, and areas of enemy combatants. This isn't your typical run-and-gun shooter. It requires tactical precision and careful strategy. It caters largely to players who enjoy a realistic military experience and don't mind taking their time to plan and execute their moves. For instance, you might find yourself having to scout a building, deciding where to bust through the door, or find a more discreet entrance, and then clear it room by room. And this is where the game is really tense and keeps you on your toes. And the game also offers a variety of gear and weapons that you have at your disposal. You have anything from the standard issue M16 to fragmentation grenades, smoke grenades, and night vision goggles for dark environments. And you will have to adapt your loadout and strategy based on your mission objectives and expected resistance. And the core gameplay mechanics revolves around realism. You don't magically regenerate health or have infinite ammo, so if you get shot, there are serious consequences. The AI is also designed to mimic real-life combatants, using cover and employing tactics to keep you guessing. And this unpredictable adds a layer of replayability, as no two counters will feel the same. And each mission would also advance the narrative. And the early game introduces you to a basic of combat mechanics, but as you progress, these challenges become more complex, requiring you to utilize all the skills that you have learned throughout playing the game. And the storyline is also based on real-life events and testimonies that actually happened to the soldiers during the battle. And it is super integral to the game, guiding the mission structure and shaping the player's experience. Now, the game doesn't follow an open world model. Instead, it uses a more segmented approach with focus on close quarter combat warfare, and each mission takes you to different parts of the city with unique layouts and strategic challenges. It is also part of the replayability. You will always have to dissect what part of the building you can enter from. You'll always be scouting where you might actually be ambushed from behind you. Now, 6 Days of Fallujah is a game that doesn't shy away from difficulty. It's clear from the onset that this is not your run-of-the-mill first-person shooter, where players can blaze through levels without a care. Its approach is grounded in reality, and this comes through in a rate that is challenging all the players. For instance, let's say you're clearing a building and decide to kick down the front door, a guns blazing style. This might work in some games, but in 6 Days of Fallujah, this approach will likely result in quick death. In this game, you need to take your time, assess your surroundings, plan your approach carefully. You have to consider things like potential enemy locations, escape routes, and possible reinforcements. And this might seem very daunting for new players, but the game actually does a pretty good job of teaching these concepts throughout the early missions without overly holding your hand. But the game also requires and encourages a big trial and error approach, with procedurally generated level design. Every replay offers a fresh layout and different challenge. Now, this doesn't mean that the game exclusively caters to the hardcore player, but it is definitely a more difficult game compared to most other shooter games. If you find this helpful, a like on the video helps a ton with the YouTube algorithm, and I'd really appreciate the support. Now, when you first boot up 6 Days Fallujah, you're met with a level of tension and anticipation that's quite unique. The early mission primarily serves to introduce the game's mechanics, but they also effectively establish the tone and atmosphere of the game. And from the outset, you are thrust into the harsh reality of urban warfare. Dangers lurk around every corner, from insurgents hiding in buildings to snipers perched on rooftops. And even the environment itself. This could be in the form of a narrow alleyway that leaves you really exposed, or building that may or may not be rigged with explosives. And the game's combat system is visual and impactful. And rather than a wide arsenal of sci-fi weapons, you are equipped with more standard issues like an M16. And every firefight feels intense and meaningful. Bullets are deadly and cover is essential for survival. And you might find yourself being pinned down by enemy fire and having to wait for backup to help you out. Now, one of the best and most unique aspects of the game is the dedication to realism and authenticity. And this isn't your typical fictional war scenario, but a recreation of actual events and places. And the game is based on first-hand accounts from the Marines who actually fought in the war, and this brings a level of authenticity rarely seen in the genre. A prime example of this is the Go command. This isn't just a gimmick, but a mechanic born out of strategy used by real-life Marines. When you issue a go, you command your AI squad members to move to the location you pointed at. But they don't just run there blindly. They cover each other, they check corners, they engage enemies, and actually mimic the movements of real-life Marines in urban combat. And this is by far one of the best and most unique features of the game. The second key distinguishing feature is the game's procedurally generated level design. And this feature adds an element of unpredictability and replayability that sets itself apart from most linear scripted shooters. And every mission can play it out differently, with different buildings and streets rearranged every time you play the game. And in one of your playthroughs, a building might be a safe haven, and the next mission, this same base could be the stronghold of the insurgents. This means you can't just memorize a level's layout to breeze through it. You have to adapt and react in real time to the challenges the game throws at you, mirroring the uncertainties that the real soldiers face on the ground. And these features combined create a sense of tension and unpredictability that's hard to find in any other games. And in addition to intense and realistic combat scenarios, the game also allows multiplayer, with a focus on co-op, which allows you to tackle missions alongside friends or other players, and really brings in the heightened sense of realism and strategy to the table. For instance, while you're playing solo, you can use the go command to tell your AI where to go, but it's completely different when you're playing with other players, and you have to coordinate and need clear communications. And this makes the game easier, but also harder in other aspects. But it definitely also makes the game a lot more fun. Now, as of making this video, the game is out on early access and costs $40. But if you just watch the trailer of the game, it looks pretty worth it. But there are some major cons that we'll get into later as to why this $40 price tag might be a bit on the high end. But the game actually looks fantastic. The graphics are truly immersive, and they go a long way to contribute to the quality of the game. And the game's visuals are stark, gritty, and hyper-realistic, with beautifully rendered environments that actually portray the war-torn landscape. The character models are also commendable, displaying a wide range of expression and emotions that add an extra layer of realism. The sound design is also incredibly well done. From the echo of gunfire in a narrower city street to jets flying above you, the city is wonderful and really soaks you into the game. And the voice chat is also perfect. Even the echoes of your friend in the dark halls is so immersive. And the radio design is also really cool and some of the best sound design in any shooter game. And all this creates a really unique immersion that I've yet to see in any other game. Now let's look at the pros and cons of the game. And the first pro is definitely the deeply immersive gameplay. And the game offers an incredibly immersive experience. The atmospheric design, realistic graphics, a sound design, combined with a unique landscape that all contributes to the sensation of being in the middle of a war zone. And next pro is definitely the sound design. I was truly impressed just by how good this is. And it does a fantastic job of making you feel immersed, but it's also really terrifying and cool at the same time. And next pro is the atmosphere. Seeing the ruined streets of Fallujah is breathtaking, and the amount of rubble and detail is the best it can get. And the last pro, which really surprised me, is the AI. It's actually incredibly well done. Seeing the enemy flank you, running around the map really gives you an overwhelming feeling of dread and fear. But also the way the AI moves when you give the go command, the way your teammates will breach, the way they will flank. This might be some of the best AI I've ever seen. Now let's look at the cons. The first con is definitely one of the biggest one, is the optimization and connection issues. It is very inconsistent, especially when playing with other players, either your friends or just random lobbies. You will very often get connection issues. The game is also not very optimized. There's a fairly significant chance you experience crashes and black screen. That can just really ruin the game for you. The next one is the steep learning curve. Mastering the controls, the realistic combat mechanics, and the fact that using military tactics can be really challenging, especially for new players. So if you're someone who considers yourself a fairly casual player, this game might really frustrate you, especially at first. And next con is the lack of content. The game costs $40, but there are only 4 scenarios, and the game severely lacks content for this price tag, and you're paying a lot of money per hour played compared to most other games. So now for the grading part. In terms of the gameplay, I actually give it an 8 out of 10, and it offers a really unique, immersive, and challenging gameplay experience that is steeped in realism. And the quick time reaction and the way you move around throughout the map is breathtaking. However, the steep learning curve and the amount of bugs you can experience brings it down slightly. And next one is the graphics and immersion. And this game actually gets a 9 out of 10. And the game's graphics are outstanding, drawing you into harsh realities of urban combat. It's also truly displayed in the sound design, which might be one of the best sound designs I've ever experienced in any game. And next I'm looking at is the replayability and progression. Now the progression from mission to mission feels really good. You are gradually introduced to the mechanics, and things get more and more complex over time. However, the fact there's only 4 scenarios and the game costs $40 really brings this down. And here I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. If they could double or triple the amount of content in this game, or find some kind of way to add more replayability, this game could be insanely good. So the overall grade of 6 Days Fallujah is a 7.5 out of 10. And it's a really impressive and tactical shooter that isn't afraid to tackle a difficult subject matter. And it blends gameplay and storytelling in a way that is both compelling and thought-provoking. And the game also offers a robust challenge. The game doesn't hold your hand, but instead opting to put you directly into the heat of battle, where quick thinking, strategy, and a keen understanding of the game's mechanics are key to survival. If you're someone who really loves history or just enjoy tactical war games, you are really gonna enjoy this game. However, I would say for 40 bucks, the amount of value you get is not that high. So would I recommend you buy this game? It depends, honestly. I would say if you could pick this game up on sale and especially also buy with a friend, you will have a great time. But even though the gameplay is really good, it is very hard to justify 40 bucks and a ton of bugs that are still occurring. But what do you think? Do you think it's worth it? Leave a comment down below and let us know. And lastly, as a small channel, please consider hitting the like button as it really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, if you're looking for more game reviews, make sure to check out the rest of the channel. And I think you also enjoyed one of the videos on the screen now, so make sure to check those out and I'll see you there.